In 1939, America would see one of its most influential events take place, the New York World's Fair. Dubbed the World of Tomorrow, this event would showcase exhibitions, activities, performances, films, art, and food presented by 62 nations, 35 U.S. states and territories, and 1,400 organizations and companies. Over 45 million people attended the event over the course of 2 years. While many guests focused on the food and the attractions, there were other minor showcases. In a darkened corner of one of the showrooms sat Hans Laub, an eccentric perfectionist of a man. As you approach, he reveals his invention, Scent-O-Vision. Later renamed to Smell-O-Vision, the revolutionary device would pump scents and smells into a movie theater, using a system of connected pipes and a control board used by the projectionist. But this technology didn't originate from this fair. In fact, if we want to trace Smell-O-Vision to its roots, we have to travel back to the very beginning, over 70 years. The first recorded instance of smells being incorporated into a theater is in 1868, in London. The Alhambra Theatre of Variety hosted a show titled Magic Dance of the Fairy Acorn Tree. During the performance, Rimmel scent was sprayed into the auditorium. Rimmel, commonly known as Rimmel London, is a British multinational cosmetics brand. Basically, the audience got flavor blasted with cologne. Not exactly the most interesting smell to begin with, but we gotta start somewhere. For the first conjunction of scents with film, we have to jump forward to 1906, notably predating the introduction of sound in film. A 1956 issue of Film Daily magazine claims that Samuel Roxy Rothafel of the Family Theater in Forest City, Pennsylvania, placed a ball of cotton wool that had been soaked in rose oil in front of an electric fan during a newsreel about the Rose Bowl game. However, this can't be confirmed, since there were no Rose Bowl games between 03 and 15. Liar! It's likely the Rose Bowl is being confused with the Rose Parade. Regardless, the connection here is the rose. Wafting the scent of this specific flower during a rose-themed event is our first real attempt at linking the visual and olfactory experiences. Rose oil is an essential oil extracted from the flower itself, and is still one of the most popular oils used in the perfume industry today. In 1929, the Fenway Theater in Boston held a special screening of the film Lilac Time. During the screening, the manager poured a pint of lilac perfume into the plenum chamber of the theater's ventilation system. The plenum chamber is a system which equalizes pressure through fluid and air pressure, and is sometimes used for soundproofing. This system caused the scent to spread to the entire auditorium when lilacs appeared on screen. Cotton ball in front of an electric fan, pouring perfume into soundproofing systems. These early attempts were one-off occurrences made with rudimentary devices. There hasn't really been any technological developments in the world of Smell-O-Vision just yet, just some simple ideas. That would come just a few years later in 1933. Paramount's own Rialto Theater on Broadway claims the first in-theater smell system, installed by film producer and distributor Arthur Mayer. However, despite this huge leap forward for the concept, there were some issues. The smells would linger in the theater for hours, and sometimes even days after the showing. It's worth noting that all of these attempts, even our first real attempt, have been made by the theater owners themselves, and not the filmmakers. Sometimes, these scents would distract from the actual film, which might have upset some of these directors. Furthermore, because these theaters could be huge, large amounts of perfume and other chemicals would be pumped into these windowless rooms in order to reach every member of the audience. Another problem, Because of the large amounts of chemicals being released in the numerous smells that would emanate through the auditorium, smells would mix together and create an olfactory overload. Too many scents, all combining and changing throughout the film, which would confuse and even sicken audience members. Even Walt Disney had some investment into this technology. Fantasia was released in 1940, and it was planned to include a scent-related element, but he cut it for budgetary reasons. Or, more likely, Roy Disney cut it for budgetary reasons. According to Wikipedia, there were huge plans for Fantasia, such as wafting perfume through the theater as the wildflowers danced during the Nutcracker Suite segment, while Stokowski suggested gunpowder as a powerful scent for the sorcerer's spellcasting. And, of course, Hans Laub at the 1939 New York World's Fair. Scent-o-vision was the first real evolution for this idea, and it evolved into a system of pipes connected to individual seats in the auditorium. The projectionist was able to control the timing and the amount of scents using a control board. On October 10, 1940, this system was used with the 35-minute Mein Traum, which was screened during this fair. The New York Times praised it, claiming Scent-o-vision is said to have produced odors as quickly and easily as the soundtrack of a film produces sound. Despite the good press, Laub was unable to garner any real interest in his invention. Even though Laub's attempt at marketing the system failed, the idea did make its way into cartoons. The 1944 Merry Melodies cartoon, The Old Gray Hair, includes a futuristic newspaper that reads, "Smell-o-vision replaces television." There's even a part of the newspaper that reads, "Carl Stalling says it will never work," referencing one of Walt Disney's colleagues. Well, if it's not good enough for Carl Stalling, then clearly it's time for Scent-o-vision to evolve. General Electric developed a system in 1953 they called Smell-o-rama. They demonstrated their own interpretation of the concept by displaying a three-dimensional rose accompanied by floral scents. Again with the rose. What is this, Steven Universe? It's interesting how this is always the first use of this technology. I guess it's one of the simplest scents to achieve. Laub wasn't completely deterred. In 1955, he set up his system at the Cinerama Warner Theater in New York to show a 10-minute test film. The system was patented 2 years later by Laub and Bert S. Good. Weiss Rodia Screen Scent. Yes, there's yet another player in this game. September 1958. An announcement is made about a film called Screen Scent No. 1. It was to be filmed in March of 1959 using their fragrance process. See, it was true that Laub and Good patented the system, but there's more than one way to get a theater smelling like farts. The Weiss Rodia system would be used by Walter Reed Jr., who, 1 year later in 1959, attempted to send these smells through the air conditioning of a theater. The film? The China Wall. Later released under the new name Behind the Great Wall, the film was released with this new gimmick, titled Aromarama. So we've got Scent-o-vision patented by Laub, and Aromarama created by Weiss and used by Walter Reed. Has everyone got that? Because it gets confusing. Charles Weiss describes Aromarama like this: "I have invented a process to make movies smell. I call the process Aromarama. After more than 2.5 years of work, our picture, Behind the Great Wall, will open December 2nd at the Mayfair Theater in New York. In addition to seeing the action and hearing the dialogue, our audiences will be able to smell the scenes. More than 100 different aromas will be injected into the theater during the film. Among these are the odors of grass, earth, exploding firecrackers, a river, incense, burning torches, horses, restaurants, the scent of a trapped tiger, and many more. We believe that smells are surer than sounds or sights to make the heartstrings crack." Finally, we get a list of smells that were planned to be incorporated. I'm not sure what a trapped tiger smells like, but I imagine it's not pleasant. A critique of the film gives a mixed review of the Aromarama system. They were impressed by the scene where Chet Huntley, the narrator, slices an orange and the smell drifts through the theater. They didn't love the smell of spices as we move through Hong Kong, or the oily smell of an ocean port. They especially hated the flowers, as this was clearly just overpowering perfume. According to this review, the odors are cleared out of the theater using a purifying treatment which itself leaves a sticky, sweet smell, which tends to upset your stomach after about 2 hours. Quote from this reviewer, who is now doubled over in agony. He happily filled his lungs with that lovely fume-laden New York ozone. It has never smelled so good. Okay, so maybe not all of the smells are winners, but at least they found a way to separate the odors so you could tell what their actual purpose was in each moment of the film. Apart from anything else, I'm disappointed in the name. Aroma Rama doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. I'm having trouble recording it in the audio. According to Weiss, screenwriter Henry Myers came up with the name Aromarama because the process was to the sense of smell what Cinerama was to the sense of sight. Aromarama echoed Cinerama rather than made fun of it. Behind the Great Wall was chosen because distributor Walter Reed felt many of the scenes would be even more impressive with scents added. Because it had won major awards in Europe, it was expected to be well received in America, and it was. Not everyone hated the Behind the Great Wall experience. With a few minor exceptions, the audience last night pronounced the succession of smells a total success from the start, which consisted of an opening from Chet Huntley, television commentator, who demonstrated what was about to happen by slicing an orange, while the odor track suffused the theater with the smell of oranges being sliced. Curiously enough, they do not give the impression of being blown in or wafted from any specific direction, although they are said to be linked to the air conditioning system. Actually, the individual smells simply appear in the nostrils without any effort being made to sniff or strain for them. And what's more remarkable, each individual odor disappears promptly when the image smelled leaves the screen. There is no question about its effectiveness in creating illusions of reality. I find it interesting that this review from the New York Herald Tribune calls out the passiveness of the overall experience. You don't have to strain to smell anything, it all wafted over you. This passiveness is something we've lost as this technology has developed. But I suppose that's for the better, as not everyone wants the assault on the senses while they're watching a movie. The December 21st, 1959 edition of Time magazine included a review of Behind the Great Wall, and it gives us a few more clues as to the inner workings of this technology. The film carries a scent track that transmits cues to an electronic trigger that fires a salvo of scent into the theater through the air conditioning ports. The Aromarama people claim that they can reach every nose in the house within 2 seconds and remove the odor almost as fast. As the air is drawn off for filtering, it is passed over electrically charged baffles that precipitate the aromatic particles. The perfumes are built up on a quick evaporating base called Freon. Freon is the gas that's largely responsible for the giant hole in the ozone layer. It's also incredibly harmful to humans when inhaled in large amounts. At that World's Fair in 1939, a man named Todd Sr. met Laub and his extraordinary invention. 15 years later, Todd and his son were brainstorming how they could enhance their own film, Around the World in 80 Days. His father remembered Laub, and while they decided not to use it for this film, it would soon come in handy. After his father's death, Todd Jr. signed Laub to a movie picture deal. Laub's system, which was renamed Smell-O-Vision by Todd, had been significantly improved in the intervening time. Instead of being manually released, Smell-O-Vision now operated on what he called a smell brain, which was a series of perfume containers linked in a belt, arranged in the order they would be released. They would be wound around a motorized wheel, which would spin and release the scents at the precise time. Sort of like an old film reel, but with scent vials. When the actual film would play, markers on the reel would signal the brain to spin around and release the next scent by piercing the membranes on the containers with a needle. The resulting aromas would be blown by fans through pipes to the vents, which were housed underneath each individual seat. The cost of outfitting a theater to accommodate the system was anywhere from $15,000 to $1 million. Both men understood this system did have some limitations. For example, heavy-hitting dramas wouldn't really mix with this gimmick. Because of this, the system would be released with the new film Scent of Mystery, a mystery comedy where key revelations would be revealed to the audience through the scents themselves. For example, one character is identified by the smell of pipe tobacco. I gotta be honest, that is a fantastic use of this kind of technology. Using the gimmick to reveal key information is an awesome idea. That's like using 3D glasses to reveal something that only appears in 3D. So what kind of smells do we have this time around? One was a simple grape smell, which was released during a scene where wine casks fall off a wagon and roll down a hill, smashing against a wall. There was also the tobacco, smoked by the villain, coffee, roses, gunpowder, peppermint, shoe polish, gasoline, perfume, flowers, brandy, fresh sea air, peaches, bananas, and wood shavings. These are all pretty tame, even the gasoline. Although this improved idea was promising, it didn't exactly go as planned. The aromas were released with a distracting hissing noise, and the scents would only reach the audience members seconds after the reveal, which of course throws the timing completely off. Scents wouldn't reach certain parts of the theater, and audience members really had to strain to sniff out the scents. Some stingy theater operators didn't bother installing the entire device, choosing to waft the scents using the air conditioning rather than individual vents under the seats. Todd Jr. actually came up with a genius solution to solve the lingering scent problem. Reverse the pump, suck the air back, and reduce the overhang on the previous smell. These tech problems were actually fixed after the first couple of showings, but bad word of mouth generated negative reviews of the film itself, signaling a dead end for smell-o-vision. Flash forward to 1981. American film director John Waters attempts to revive the concept with odorama, set to debut with his film Polyester. This time, instead of the scents being forced upon the audience in a passive manner, the audience would be responsible for initiating the smells. Waters included scratch and sniff cards that the audience could use while watching the movie. These cards would include different spots numbered 1 through 10. When a number flashed on screen, the theater goer would scratch this area of the card and sniff it. Smells included the scent of flowers, pizza, glue, glass, freshly cut grass, and feces. Yep, we've officially jumped the shark. Scratch here to smell feces. Exciting. Confusingly, upon its DVD release, the scent of glue was changed due to, political correctness. Your guess is as good as mine as to what that means. They kept the feces, but the glue had to go. What this film did was essentially play a trick on its audience. The first smell was pleasant, like roses. Then with the next scent, you would get the feces. Then maybe a few nice ones, and bam, dirty shoes. The film plays with audience expectations and actively tries to make them uncomfortable. How do these cards work? According to Wikipedia, you apply a fragrant coating to stickers or paperboard, so that when this coating is scratched, it wafts the smell in your direction. Gail Watson accidentally invented this technology while working for 3M in the 60s. He was attempting to create carbonless copy paper using microencapsulation, a process where tiny particles or droplets are surrounded by a coating to create small capsules, which are released under pressure. Because of microencapsulation, the cards can be stored for a very long time. And that's pretty much where we're at with this technology. You may notice that I left out a few developments in the timeline, such as Regal Cinemas developing 4DX in 2009, which is basically a glorified motion simulator. I left some of these out because they just didn't really fit in with the narrative, and they weren't all that significant anyway. We started out with a passive system of pipes and vents, then moved to the less expensive, more boring version of the scratch and sniffs. In my opinion, there's still room to grow with this technology. What about 3D glasses, which can emit minuscule amounts of the scent? But those glasses would likely be too expensive. Yeah, okay. I think the old system of equipping 1 or 2 auditoriums with the technology would work best here. It's likely just a matter of getting a film studio on board with creating different scents for the film, and figuring out how to incorporate it into the story. Like, revealing who the killer is through the scent is genius. I love that. Both Hollywood and theater chains are desperate for new ideas right now, so maybe it's in the scratch and sniff cards. I want to thank Carrot, Inky, Kind Devil, Lucky, Morgan, Koei, and Tonga for their candles art. All of their links are in the description. I've been working on this little project for a while. I commissioned some of our most prominent artists in the community to draw candles in their own style in one outfit, and they honestly turned out amazing. I wanted to go for a wide variety of styles, and that's exactly what I got. Remember, we have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel. There's a free tier where you can receive frequent video updates, and a $5 tier where you can get a monthly bonus features video, where you can see the videos that never got finished, unused outfits, and more. Depending on when this video comes out, that's likely the next thing I'm going to make for the channel, is that bonus features video for the month of May. So, thank you everybody so much for watching. I love you all. Good night.